Guys, welcome back to the Engineered Angler. Last week we made a bunch of these funky looking swim baits, and the idea was to test a bunch of tail styles. So you'll remember the ball one. This week we're gonna go ahead and test them in the water. I'm out here on Big Santa Fe Lake, and we're gonna get some underwater shots of these things and decide which one is the best. And this is not just for fun. I really want to know which tail is really gonna move the nicest, or at least what I think is gonna be the nicest. And once I've decided that, I'm going to try to make a really nice master lure so I can make a silicone mold. And that way I can make a bunch of really nice swim baits that I can use either freshwater or saltwater. Let's get started. And just as a reminder, we made a flat fin version, a full ball, a half a ball, and then your standard boot tail and a lug tail. Instead of a jig head, I'm going to use this big oversized 7/0 wide gap belly weighted hook, and I'm hoping that will be a nice balance for this thing. This thing has a keeper wire hook in here, a little gaff, and then it's just a matter of popping it through the bottom of the lure like so, and it creates pretty weedless, and that's what I want. I don't want it to hang up on anything. Let's start with the ball tail. Right off the bat, it looked like it wasn't going to work very well, but as I picked up a little bit of speed with the trolling motor, it really started to wobble pretty nicely. And once I got up to a speed that would be normal on a retrieve, it really started to look good, and I could feel it in the rod tip. And you can see how much it's actually swinging that ball around, enough that it's actually moving the head quite a bit. You can really see it in this slow motion shot. I'm surprised at this action and pretty happy with it. Let's move on to the half ball. Now I thought, theoretically, that if you flattened out the back, you'd have more turbulence in the back and you'd get a lot more action. And I was completely wrong. Look at this. It's completely stable. It barely moves at all. In fact, I kept trying to bump the speed up on the boat little by little, and at this point I had it going as fast as it could possibly go, and you can barely see a little wiggle. Just goes to show you that theory is really just theory. Until you get it in the water, you really don't know how it's going to behave. I'd really like to know if you guys thought this would work better than this. Let's move on to the flat fin tail. I meant this to look kind of fishy, and as a twitch bait, it looks pretty nice. But unfortunately, it doesn't really swim. It just sort of lays there in the current. Even when I twitch it a little bit to see if I can start some kind of action, it doesn't do anything. As I pick up speed and get the boat really moving, it starts a little bit of a sway. Just a little undulation back and forth. Nothing that looks good, and nothing that I would want in my lure. Okay, let's move on to the lug tail. Now this is a tail that I made by just taking that fin tail and adding a lump of wood. That creates a little bit of extra turbulence in the back. And unlike my last theory, this actually works. The result is a high frequency, low amplitude wiggle. More a vibration than a wiggle. And even at a slower speed, it moved like this. As I increased the boat speed, I could really start feeling that vibration through the rod tip. It's kind of cool, but seems a little bit sedate. I don't know that a fish will see that, although it probably puts a pretty good vibration in the water. So I think this is a viable tail, and something I'll consider making in the future. So let's move on to a tail style that we're all familiar with, the boot tail. Now this I had high hopes for, and I was pretty certain this was going to swim nicely. And it does. Look at that vibration. It's kind of neat to see it underwater, moving that erratically. It not only moves side to side, but does like a half a rotation without twisting the lure body, and just flips all over the place. In slow motion, this is quarter speed slow motion, and you can still see how violently this thing is moving around and how much the head is bopping up and down. This is a really good tail. Something I might just go ahead and go with. Alright, and finally, the combination one that I didn't do on camera, and I asked you guys to try to guess which combination of different tails I was going to use. Well, sort of the fish tail combined with the boot tail. So I took the parts that I had already made for the other ones. I cut a slot in the boot tail plate so I could slide it onto the flat fin that was still attached to the end of the lure. And now it was just a matter of gluing it in with some UV resin and then doing a little bit of shaping, and I got my results. It was time to create the mold and then pour that soft plastic lure. I really didn't know what to expect. I thought maybe that extra fin was going to cause more drag and less action, but I was wrong. Look at this thing move. It looks like a feather duster. It just sort of rotates on itself, and most of the action is up and down, unlike the boot tail where it was side to side. You can see it here. It looks like it's trying to play patty cake with itself. It's just folding in on itself and then opening up, flopping around. It has a really good action, but it just looks odd. In slow motion, you can see that it's a weird combination of movements, up and to the side. I like it, but what do you guys think? Which one would you go with? Alright, let's pair them up side by side in slow motion, the ones that are similar to each other, and see what we get. And here's the ball and the half ball. The ball's on the left, and you can see what a huge action it has, even in slow motion. What a difference just cutting half the ball off made. I was really surprised by this. Here's the lug tail on the left, and just the flat fin tail on the right. The lug tail actually works, but I'm not real happy with it. How about you guys? And now the boot tail on the left and the boot fin tail on the right. Pretty big difference in their action, but both of them are pretty nice looking. I'm torn, and I really just can't stop watching this. What do you guys think? Which one of these would you invest time and silicone to make a mold for? Let me know in the comments. Well, I won't know which one of these guys I like the best until I review all the footage. So if you're enjoying this stuff, don't forget to leave me a like, subscribe if you haven't, and leave me some suggestions for other tests I might want to do. Alright guys, I'll see you next Friday.